Hello, this is Chuck Solomon, and welcome to the Candidate Experience Podcast, where we focus on the job candidate journey from apply to onboard and the space in between. Let's get started. You care about the candidate experience, but have you ever wondered exactly how to bring your company to that next level and offer a world-class experience to your candidates? It's not easy. Fortunately, Candidate.fyi can help. Their solution guides candidates through your hiring journey, enhancing transparency and communication at every touch point. You'll also gain valuable insights on what's working and what's not with your hiring process. Best of all, it integrates directly with your ATS. Head on over to Candidate.fyi and see how to transform your company's candidate experience today. Welcome to the Country House Bourbon and Action Hero episode. My guest, Stephanie Gibson, shares her insights into enhancing the job candidate experience. Pay special attention to what she shares about how her company has created an internal team solely devoted to both customer experience and candidate experience. If you like what you hear on this podcast, please subscribe and do share with others. Want to comment, discuss, or provide feedback? You can send me a note via LinkedIn or via the contact form on our website. That's www.thecx.xyz. Thanks for listening, and here's my interview. Did you wake up, one day and decide, I want to be an HR manager? Or how did you come to be an HR manager?
I actually, when I was studying in school, I had every intention of being a professor.
Sure.
And so that kind of explains my undergrad being international studies, and in Spanish, I wanted to be a Spanish professor, and then also a foreign service officer. But while I was in school, I was progressing my way up the leadership chain in a retail optical company, and found myself as a general manager, like almost immediately after I graduated. And
Sure.
so what I really loved about management was the interactions and the relationships I built with the employees, most specifically with training, performance management, employee development. My best days at work were the days that I was able to help somebody get to the next level, either performance-wise or through a promotion. And I just, I started to realize that dealing with the employees was much more rewarding for me than the customers or the sales side.
Sure.
So I started, kind of looking back at my education and like, well, this really isn't going to get me into HR. So I decided to go through a graduate program with
Sure.
Villanova University for human resources development. And then while I was in that program, I got my first HR role at a company that was like automotive manufacturing.
Sure.
Kind of got my feet wet there. And then I moved on. After a year there, I got a job where I was actually started out as a generalist and then promoted 6 months later that was my first HR manager role.
Gotcha. And you currently are an HR manager at J. Nipper and Company. I don't think probably very many of our listeners know what Nipper does. So it's not a household name, but I think you guys do some important work and such. But can you tell us a little bit about what your company does?
Yeah. So J. Nipper and Company is branded as healthcare marketing, and that is because we help with pharmaceutical drug sample fulfillment services and other, the related literature or programs that might
Sure.
support pharmaceutical sample distribution. Um, so that's kind of like big picture what we do. There's a lot of other great services that Nipper offers to pharmaceutical clients. And then we also have a another branch, which is our specialty pharmacy called Nipper RX, and that is a mail order specialty pharmacy that's dealing with, obviously specialty drugs, but it's, getting into the mail order side of pharmaceutical or
Sure.
pharmacy. So, that's a big growing industry.
So not just samples, but actual
Yes.
online. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So, drug samples you would only send to sales rep or a doctor in
Sure.
order to deliver to a patient. They have to have a prescription. And in order to fulfill a prescription, you have to have a pharmacy.
Sure.
So, that's that would be the progression there into
I
opening a pharmacy.
Yeah, I totally understand. To my dad's dismay, he's a pharmacist. He always worked in for years and years for the small independent pharmacies, and finally one of those big behemoths bought up the independent stuff. But
Yeah.
I can thank him for getting me through high school chemistry, because without him, I would not have gotten through it. So thanks, Dad. Shout out to Dad.
Yeah, that sparks the other reason why I ended up in HR.
Not good at chemistry.
I was definitely not going to be a doctor.
So not good at chemistry, biology, medicine. Yeah,
No,
I got you. I'm with you on that one there. So, I think the role that you do and the role that I do, I think, has value to it. So we're not saving lives, we're still helping lives, if you will.
Yeah,
Great.
sure.
And you're in Louisville, and you have a big event happening this weekend, right? To have the weekend, it's the first Saturday of May, right? The
Yes,
Kentucky
the
Derby.
Kentucky Derby, baby.
Yeah. Any predictions?
I predict it's going to be very congested downtown.
Okay. You actually go? Have you been? You must have been.
Yeah. I've gone in past years.
Okay.
Tomorrow is an event related to Derby. It's called the Oaks, so I'll actually be at the track for Oaks. I'm not doing Derby Day this year, but I'll do Oaks Day tomorrow, and it'll be fun. It's always a good time.
Right.
It's basically 2 weeks of parties and events preceding a 2-minute race.
I know. I love it. It's I live in North Carolina, where horse racing isn't a big thing, but we actually usually watch it every day, and it's the hype. Is like, has it started yet? No. Has it started yet?
Yeah.
No, it hasn't started. So do you have one of those big hats, or?
This is my first year. I got a modestly sized hat. I can't do a super big hat. I got a hat. I was just doing the fascinators and the headpieces. But
Sure.
this year I'm getting a little bit more festive.
Gotcha.
Never get the chance to actually be at Churchill Downs for that particular race. The energy and the excitement of the crowd and everyone there, and it's just fantastic production. It's a beautiful track. I would recommend putting it on your bucket list.
Gotcha. And you forgot to mention the bourbon too. So
I know I'm a bad Kentucky girl, because it's an effort for me to like drinks with bourbon in them.
Maybe I'll edit that part out there. Otherwise, you might get excommunicated from your state there. So I'm a bourbon fan, and we were rushing through Ohio on the way back to North Carolina on a summer trip, and we drove through, and I said, we're not driving through the state of Kentucky without stopping somewhere. And we went to a small, not like Maker's Mark or anything. It was a really tiny place, and I forget the name of it, but we missed the tour by like 15 minutes. And we're like, oh, we wanted to go on the tour. And the tour guide actually took us on our own little private tour and sampling and everything. We're like, aren't you supposed to be leaving? And he's like, don't worry, I'll spend 15 minutes with you. It's all good. So I would definitely want to spend more time back at that place if I can figure out the name of it. But I'm a fan.
I would have to say that the people at places like that are easily, an equal draw as the product they make.
Sure. Agreed. Agreed. So we have to move on to other pressing matters because that's why people are listening. So you have to stop talking about bourbon and horse races and talk about a little bit about the customer experience. Candidate experience. I misspoke. So can you share a bit about what Nipper's doing well, or you think they're doing well in terms of the whole experience?
Yes. So Nipper, I'm very proud to say, has invested in an entire department that's actually called the customer experience. And I think this is so important, especially for a company our size. We're a family-owned business. It's so important that we would make this kind of investment, and it's impressive, and it makes me very, very proud of our leadership here. But the customer experience is a department. It has a dotted line reporting to HR, and their mission is to review processes for the perceptions that our clients have about us.
Sure.
And so a lot of it is directed at external clients, but they are actually also responsible for things that impact internal customers. And they have a slogan called "Every action we take makes a difference." They have awards called the Action Hero Award. If you've made someone's day, especially a client, or people can be nominated to be action heroes. But it's great. They have owned employee engagement events. They're going to be reviewing processes for the candidate experience.
Sure.
And it's just so important to keep the awareness on these things, on how the perceptions we put out there, how we communicate with clients, how we communicate with anybody outside of the organization, but also not forgetting the people inside the organization.
Sure.
And so I think that's very special.
Definitely. So so you could win the Action Hero Award. That's the award title.
Yeah. We have several different awards that are recognition based. That would be their primary award for the customer experience, would be the Action Hero Award. They also have a Winning at WOW award that they do. That's you can be written for a WOW card, and then periodically those cards, are drawn, and if your name is drawn, then you get awarded that way for the
Sure.
Winning at WOW drawings. But yeah, they've done a lot with recognition, and also they owned Customer Service Week together, a great week for our employees for Customer Service Week. Every detail in all the effort that's put into engagement here at Nipper is something that makes me really proud. And it makes me really proud to be on the end that helps to deliver on those things.
Sure. So how is this you mentioned you're a relatively small business, like how many people are part of this experience team?
3 to 5.
And is this like their sole responsibility, or is this like a piece of their overall responsibilities?
That is their responsibility.
Oh wow.
That is a department.
Oh wow. So
Yeah.
I think that's great, especially for how many total employees do you have across all locations approximately?
Um, we have, my understanding is because we have quite a few field employees that are more casual employees. They take jobs kind of as needed in the field. So
Sure.
I think it's close to 2,000.
Wow. So 2000, and already you have a department of 3 to 5 people that are dedicated to experience. Now, so they're starting with customer experience, but it also applies to internal. And do you believe they're going to be measuring or putting some measures in place for not only the customer experience, but also the candidate experience too?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, because that is how a big piece of how companies brand themselves is they get reputations, especially in the pharmaceutical industry. It's
Sure.
um, everyone knows everyone, and it's very common. You see it on the sample side, but you also see it on the pharmacy side, where every candidate that you talk to, it seems like somebody knows them already
Sure.
from somewhere, because it is, sort of a niche sort of industry.
Sure.
You
Small
end up
world.
hiring from your competitors and that sort of thing.
Sure. The yeah, so I talk a lot about how, and I guess it applies to B2B companies, but I always usually stress with B2C companies that, and you're kind of a combination of both, I think, but I always stress that companies should really be looking at the candidate experience and to spend some time in the sort of marketing and sales department or client support departments to see if they can sort of match and mirror, apply things that work well in the customer experience um, side of the business. And that I think just because their unemployment is so low, and it's been low for a while and continues to be low, and the economy is moving along well, that it's getting even tougher. It's already tough, but it's getting even tougher to hire. And if you don't have a top-notch candidate experience that is more in line with like a customer experience that we all have come to know and like, then I think you're putting yourself as an employer at a disadvantage, especially on the recruiting and retention end of things.
Oh yes, and I would say that anyone who is in recruiting as a recruiter, or some piece of talent acquisition, um, if you haven't already figured out you're in sales, then you better figure it out. Because the market has shifted quite
Yeah.
a bit. It wasn't that many years ago that we could be very um, uh, different.
Selective.
Selective, but it's not just selected in choosing, but it was also we could behave differently as a company, who we called back, who we didn't, our responsiveness versus the candidate's responsiveness. I think there was an expectation that candidates should be sending thank you letters and really uh, beating your door down to get a job. And
Right.
it's totally different now. It's totally different. I One of my pet peeves is when this conversation goes to, oh, it's millennials. These millennials, they're, I get, because it's not just millennials that you hire. You have to. constantly be following up with your candidates, because the company that's being more responsive or acting more interested is likely where they're going to go.
Sure.
It's not just about pay or benefits or sending them your information or the link to your website so that they can research you. You really have to put the work in to win them
Right.
over.
Right. I think you hit the nail on the head. Responsiveness, I think, is a big thing. I've had other guests come on board and sort of talk about the fact that there's some companies that just aren't even, they still can't seem to close the loop on, you might have 100 people apply, only one person gets the job. Well, what do you do with the other 99? And just simply closing the loop and letting them know, thank you for applying, but we've
Yeah.
selected someone else. Like, I don't work directly with a lot of ATSs, but that's what I tell me, that whatever ATS you're using probably has that feature in that to close out the
Yeah.
job and send that
Yes.
email.
Yeah, exactly. It's a mass email, and a lot of times the ATS has for instance, the one we use has um, the ability to fill in the name and the job
Mm-hmm.
that it was in case they applied to more than one. It can be specific. It was this role that, we're addressing here in this email. Um, it's not difficult. It's not difficult to do. And if it's a candidate that, was one of your finalists, I think that deserves a phone call.
Agreed.
You
Agreed.
know,
Or yeah, or
yeah,
at least a personalized email. So,
yeah,
yeah, no, totally agree. So I mentioned this a minute ago. It is already tough, and it's getting even tougher. Um, how does Nipper compete, or what makes Nipper special? Why would someone, you know, candidates have lots of options these days, but why, why would someone want to come and work at Nipper?
I think, when candidates come in for the interview, I think they always ask, well, why do you like working at Nipper?
They
And
ask you that?
yeah, a
Okay,
lot of times, at the end of the interview, say,
sure.
do you have any questions for us? And, a lot of times they ask, like, well, what do you like about here? Because they're usually asking a lot of questions, really trying to wrap their head around the business. It's where I am we're physically located in Charlestown, Indiana. There's really not a competitor around here that does what we do.
Sure.
And so helping them understand exactly what we do, but they always ask, well, what do you like about working here? And my answer is always culture. Um, I think we're doing it right. I think we're doing it well. Um, Nipper is a family-owned company, and they are putting effort into that piece. Probably in the most impactful way that I've really seen it done. It's not just we have our core values, and it's not just like, oh, here's a presentation about our core values, or here's this poster in the break room with our core values. You can really feel it, and you can feel it the way we bring someone in, and the way they're greeted at the front desk, and they get ushered in, and
Mhm.
you feel it in every part of it. Even in the interview, I think the managers, especially the ones I work with, they really are looking for character. You know, um, I
Sure.
think I think that's a big win with us, and I think it's proven in our numbers. In at the time I've been here, I'll be here a year in June. I can count the number of people we've lost, full-time employees. I can count those on one hand.
Wow.
And that's really rare for a company these days, especially in an industry like distribution or warehousing where we have, you know, pick pack operators and forklift drivers and a lot of these type of roles where they could be doing the same job at, 20 other companies less than a mile from us, but they're staying here.
Wow. How many employees at your location approximately?
Including temporary employees, we have usually between 80 and 90.
80 and 90. And you said one hand, so at the most 5. So you have a very, very low turnover. That's great. Especially with a lot of these folks are hourly folks too, or
yes.
So with stiff competition and other places to go, I think that's great that speaks to the culture I think that you're trying to create there.
Yeah, I won't give any of the big names in any press.
Sure.
They don't need it, but we have some pretty big names very, very close to our physical location that, would be very hard to compete with.
Sure.
If we were any other company on the street.
So you must be doing not one thing right, but you're doing several things right. So, because considering, I'm not sure what the retention rates are, especially with the types of roles that you hire for and stuff, but I would think you're probably in the top 10 or 20% of companies in terms of retention for that sort of class. So
yeah, exactly. I'm from companies that have had, fairly high turnover.
Sure.
And when I was there, I know that we compared ourselves to the industry because it was a concern, but we were, pretty on track with competitors. And so I think the emphasis on retention wasn't as high. But I think here, even with it being so low, it's a big deal when someone leaves. It's not like, oh, it's okay. Our turnover is still low. It's a pretty serious thing. And I think people take employment decisions very, very seriously at this company.
Sure. Thanks, Stephanie. I appreciate you sharing. If people wanted to get a hold of you or learn more about your company, how would they do that?
Yes, we have a website, nipper.com or nipperrx.com if you're interested in the pharmacy side. They can find me on LinkedIn. And yeah.
Perfect. I appreciate your time and insights today. Thanks for listening to the Candidate Experience podcast. You can reach out to us via our website, thecx.xyz. That's thecx.xyz.